Vanessa, the Crafty Gemini, and in this video tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to make this cute and functional needle book while I share with you some tips on how to work and sew with cork fabric. Now, if you've been following along with the last couple of videos I posted, we were talking about working with clear vinyl. I shared with you some tips on working with zippers, and so many of you left me comments and emails and messages asking me about my new upcoming Organizer of the Month Club. So thank you everybody for your comments. Several of you are super excited to jump in and join the club, and you haven't even seen all the projects yet. So sit tight, I'm almost ready, putting the last final touches on the club so we can open it up for sign-ups coming up very soon. So definitely click the subscribe button on my channel so you don't miss out on the upcoming video, because when I do release it and I open it up, if you've signed up for my previous bag clubs or wallet clubs, you know how it works, right? I open up the club membership at a discounted price for a very limited window of time. Once that window closes, the price definitely goes up. So if you want to save some money and you want to learn some new skills in the process of making some cute and functional organizer projects, definitely finish watching this video and stick around for the next one, because that's where I'll be giving you all the details. Now let's go over the supplies we're going to need to make our cute little needle book, and we'll jump right into making our project. Now, to make the little cork needle book, you're going to need the following supplies. One piece of cork for the exterior that's been cut to 4 1/4 by 7 1/4 inches. If you're going to add a contrasting applique embellishment to the front, cut yourself out at least a 3 inch by 3 inch square, or 4 by 4 will be fine, something in this size range. For the inside lining piece here, we have cotton fabric that's been cut to 4 1/2 by 7 1/2, and a matching piece of crisp, fusible, non-woven interfacing. For the interior pages, 2 rectangles of either 100% cotton batting or wool that measures 3 1/2 by 6 1/2. Now, 2 pieces like this will yield you the 4 pages I showed you earlier. If you want more pages, just account 1 strip at this size for every 2 pages you want to have in there. Then you'll need a button for the closure on the back and some type of elastic that will help you close it. It can be a narrow elastic. I like to work with knit elastic because I can cut it down to the width that I need, or you can use even a hair tie to get this part of it done. First, we prep the lining fabric by placing it with the wrong side of the fabric onto the shinier, fusible side of the non-woven interfacing. We're going to take a hot iron or a press, and you want to fuse these two together. Once the lining fabric is fused to the interfacing, you're going to want to cut out 4 squares off of each of the 4 corners here, and they should be about 1/4 inch square. So I just drew one there so you have an idea. So you can take a ruler and measure, or you can just eyeball it. This doesn't have to be super precise, but it will help us keep some raw edges out of the corner, and you'll see that in the next step. Now you want to grab some basting glue, whatever your favorite is. I like to use just the washable white school glue. You can also use the Wash Away Wonder tape if you have that, and I'll show you how to do it with both. You're going to place it right up against the edge, and this tape that I'm using measures 1/4 inch wide, which is exactly what I need to fold over, so that works out great. You put it down on one edge. I scratch it like this with my nail, and then peel back the top, which is the paper edge, and then you're going to fold this edge down onto itself, the 1/4 inch. Okay, so that's one way. I'll do the glue method the other way. Tiny bit of glue. Fold it onto itself. It helps if you have a hot, dry iron to help set the glue. Okay, once you're done with the 2 long sides, and you're going to turn it and repeat the process to the short sides, and you'll see what happens. Because I cut away the excess, there's less bulk. So this should fold over itself nicely like that. Now that we've turned back all 4 sides of our rectangle here and glue basted them into place, we are ready to move on. And if you're wondering why we did this, it's because we need to finish the edges of the cotton fabric. Because unlike the cork fabric, which doesn't fray, the cotton fabric does. So remember, the exterior cork fabric is going to remain raw, but the cotton lining fabric has to be turned under and finished, so you still get a nice clean finish in the finished needle book, okay? So let's set both of these aside and grab the contrasting fabric of our cork so we can cut out our embellishment next. All right, for the embellishment, I'm using this contrasting orange colored cork, and you can see that the cork fabric comes with different colored backings depending on what you see coming through kind of the speckled look of it. So I see cream there, you know it's going to have a lighter background, and this darker purple color has the black on the back. Now, it's very easy to cut through cork, so what I'm going to do is cut out a letter V maybe. Let me grab some chalk. I can probably write on this. I'm just going to give myself some guidelines. Okay, something like this. All right, so what I'm going to do, and you can cut out anything that's symmetrical like that, I will cut on the fold, so the same way that I did with the heart. So for this V, I'm just going to fold it, and I'm just eyeballing this, but this is just a good way for you to kind of familiarize yourself with the textile and try it out. Now you can see I have some short snips here. These are some of my favorite little scissors to work with. I'll link to these. They're super sharp, and you can see that even through the bulk of the cork, I can cut right through them. Notice, I've only cut out one V of it. This is simply going to be placed on here and stitched down. That's all you have to do with the cork embellishments. And if you're wondering about the chalk, you can just wet this and take it off. So the cork fabric itself is water repellent and stain resistant. So you can rinse it off with a little bit of water. Sometimes it just rubs off, but that's not a big deal to me. I'm going to place it kind of where I want it. So a good way to gauge is to fold your needle book in half. And this will be trimmed down a little bit smaller too. So just, and I think that that's big enough. That's fine. Perfect. So I'll set this aside. You can see how it cuts. And I just love to show that because it's so smooth. And you see that the edges don't fray. So give it a try. Remember, I'll include a link on where you can get yourself some cork fabric. Now, let's move on to the next step. All right, so the next step I like to do is to take my lining fabric and place it inside the bigger rectangle of the cork. And the reason I do this is that I allow for the cork to be a little bit bigger. So now at this point, when you see exactly how far you turned all the edges, because I know there can tend to be a little bit of off measurements there, now you'll know exactly how big to cut the cork so that the edges are nice and flush, okay? So just place it right in place. Or you can even start it off on one corner if your cutting was pretty straight. And now I'm just going to trim away the excess here and here. Now, the same way that I can cut through the cork super easily with scissors, cutting with a rotary cutter through the cork is a dream also. Just be careful you don't cut into your cotton fabric. But I just do it like that so I can get the cork as close as I can to that fabric. All right, and that looks good to me. Now I have a better idea of where exactly it's going to fold so that I can then stitch on my embellishment before I put these two together. Because if I sew these two and then I put on the letter V and I stitch it on, I'm going to see my stitching here, which I don't want to see. So here's my heart. It's stitched just to the cork by itself so you don't see it on the inside. So that's what I'm going to do next, is that I will fold this in half and kind of crease it just to give myself a visual, and I know that I want it centered on this part here. Okay, so now I can apply a little bit of glue to the letter V to keep it in place, and then I'll place it here and we can head over to the sewing machine to stitch it down. All right, so for appliquing the cork letter on top of another layer of cork, everybody tends to find, you know, a needle combination with thread, and on their machine it depends too. So on my computerized machine here, I find that works great using the Teflon foot that came with the machine, okay? And then I just use an 80-12 needle, believe it or not. I know some people go up to a 90-14. If you're struggling or maybe getting some skip stitches, I would check that out, you know, and maybe bump up the needle size to go through the layers. But I find that an 80-12 universal tends to work fine for me, especially if it's just these two layers. If I'm going through a lot of other stuff, like in a handbag, where I have, you know, foam, fabric, different stabilizers, and cork, then yes, I will bump up to a larger needle. But for something like this, just a regular universal 80-12 needle, I am going to lengthen my stitch length. Here I have it set to a 2.6 on a regular straight stitch. And then I'm going to start somewhere here at the bottom and just work my way around the letter, stitching about 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch away from the edge. All right, so I've stitched all the way around the letter V, and now when I'm coming back to where I was, or where I started, I will take a few stitches into my first couple of stitches and then just one more back to resecure that, but without adding way too much bulk of the thread buildup. After the embellishment is on, we are going to put both of these together with pretty sides out. So you should be looking at the cork, and on the other side you should be looking at what it will look like inside. So the pretty side of your lining fabric. Now you can use your basting glue. I like to use my temporary spray adhesive if I have it here on hand, and I will just spritz a little, and I find that that holds it really, really well so that I can top stitch around here. But in the meantime, you see how that's nice and stuck together? Once these are stuck together, I like to grab the pages that are going to go inside, your felt or your batting, and I place them here and center them first to get a visual. They should be a little bit shorter than the exterior, and I feel like this is a little too close still. What happens is I'm going to trim a little bit off the edges, but I want you to check it before you trim. If they are exactly the length of your needle book, what happens is that when it's folded, all this bulk builds up here, and when you close it, pages end up coming out beyond the edge of the needle book. And I don't like the way that that looks, but I'm going to trim just like 1/8 of an inch off of the edge here because I want them to be a little bit shorter before I go and stitch them in. So just like that, barely anything. And then I center them there so there should be some space all the way around. Looks good. And then let's just leave it like that for now and grab our elastic. So for the elastic, I like to use knit elastic, and I buy it in really wide chunks because I can go in and cut it as narrow as I need it to be. So this is a little bit too chunky for this button and for what I want for this project. So I'm just going to grab a ruler and cut it. A little skinnier than 1/4 of an inch, I think, is going to be good. And I just stretch it a little, get rid of any little things that come out. And now I have a narrower chunk of elastic to work with. So here's a couple different things you can do. If you chose to do no embellishment to the front, you can place your button on the front and have the elastic loop around to close here. Because my embellishments are on the front and I don't want to have the button right here, nor did I want to place it in the center and have this reach all the way there, I wanted it in the back and away from me. Because if I hold it like this, I know that I just have to pull it and let it loose to close. So that's the application I'm going to show you how to do with the button, because I have an embellishment on the front of this one as well. So that means that the elastic needs to be installed in between the front and the lining right here. This is my front. And because I temporarily spray basted it, you can just pull it apart. Okay? Create a loop with your elastic and just eyeball the center there and insert it. I do like to insert at least 1/4, if not more, of an inch going inside so that when I stitch here, I can make sure I catch it and don't run the risk of pulling it out after. And I just put the ends side by side. You can use the wash away wonder tape, basting glue, whatever you want to kind of hold this in place. I'm just going to put a clip. Okay, and this is another tip for when you're working with cork. To hold layers of cork to anything else together, my favorite ways are using some type of a tape, glue, and clips. Because the cork fabric, you don't want to pierce it with your pins. You'll make holes in it if you do, and you don't want to see the holes after the fact. So that's another reason to go nice and slow. Make sure you have everything lined up when you're working with cork so that you don't have to run the risk of ripping out stitches, because if you do, you'll see the holes from the previous line of stitching that you were trying to correct. So I'm going to top stitch exterior to lining fabric first, all the way around, all 4 sides like this. just with the elastic in there. Then we'll go back, insert our pages, and just do a reinforcing line down the center. Okay? Now, for the button, you can choose to sew it through if you need it to be a little sturdier. Say you're using a small button, you can go through all the layers, and then you'll see your thread bundle here of the installation of the button. Or you can do it now just on the cork fabric, so that when you sew the lining to it, you won't see it, which, as you can see, is what I did here. There's nothing there, and there it is stitched on. Okay? For attaching the button, after you have the little elastic looped into place, fold it in half so you can see where, if you did a good job of centering it or not, doesn't really matter, but you want it to be where the elastic is going to come over. And you want to put it a little bit further so that it requires the elastic to be stretched to hold everything together. Does that make sense? So I think I'm going to put this little button right here. Since it's not that small, it's kind of big, so it needs to loop over. So I'm placing it, the center of it is about 1 inch over from the edge. So I'm going to do it just through my cork fabric. And because this button is flat and I need it to be a little bit raised up so the elastic can loop around it, I'm going to show you what I do. So I just kind of hold it where it needs to go, and I come up from behind the cork. And what I'm using here is a thicker thread. So this is a 12 weight cotton thread, because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to create a little bit more of a raised platform. So I just came up one little hole and down the other. Okay, that's the first stitch, and I know that it's secured there in place. Now I'm going to go up again, down the other again, and I'll do that 3 or 4 times, and then I'll share with you how I lift this up a little bit to give me some room underneath there. So now, come back up. And when I go down, I don't go through the fabric. I'm just coming through the eye of the little opening part of the button. And notice where I'm at, above the cork, here. So now I'll take my thicker thread, the 12 weight cotton, and I'm going to wrap it around here like 10 times. So what that does is creates a buildup of thread underneath there that raises up the button a little bit so that it's not completely sitting flush on the cork. Does that make sense? Then I'll go under here and going close to wherever I'm at. Come through the cork. And you can take another stitch if you want to or not. It doesn't really matter too much at this point because it's pretty secure. I'll do one more stitch and then I'll tie my knot on the back of the cork. And then we'll be good to go. So to tie the knot, I just go under some of my previous stitches a couple times. And so here, for the last knot, like where I'm going to tie off the actual knot, instead of pulling all the way through, I leave this loop. Then I go under the loop once. You see how that creates a twist in it? And then twice, and that's when I pull. So when I pull, all the little twists that I just did are cinching in to create that knot. I do that, and then what I do is leave a long tail, so that I don't run the risk of any of that coming loose, since the tail is going to be sandwiched in the lining anyways, okay? So let's stick this back. Now the button is in place, reposition our cork, and we're ready to move on with the top stitching. And now let's head over to the sewing machine to sew along all 4 sides, and I go back and do a few reinforcement back stitches over the elastic part, since that's where it'll get the most wear and tear and pulling. And then after we're done with that, we'll come back with the felt and we'll stitch it down in the center. So I'm actually going to take all of this over to the sewing machine. Now you can choose to put a matching thread like I did for the applique, or a contrasting thread. So again, I'm still with the Teflon foot, same stitches, and the same needle, going through all the fabric. Just double check and make sure that everything is where you need it to be. And I typically start somewhere on the bottom left corner of the needle book here. All right, so now let's add the pages. So for that, I close it up, I fold it in half, and I'm actually going to stitch this from the cork side, so that's why I'm creasing it right there. So I'll place these guys centered, and so you have a little bit of space all the way around. Okay, that looks good. Now we'll flip it, and I see where the center line is. If you can't see a good enough crease, then you definitely want to go ahead and mark it with something, a piece of chalk, and then we're going to stitch it straight down. Now here's a tip that I often use for stitching this down the center. If I start on one end, sometimes I tend to go a little bit crooked, even if I'm kind of eyeballing where I can see the crease. So what I like to do, and this also will help to stabilize the sheets that are underneath, the little needlebook pages, is to start in the center. And notice I have it with the felt or batting side down onto the bed of the machine, so I'm doing this from the outside of the cork. So we start there, and then I'll stitch straight forward. And I'm going to stop at my top stitching line on the outside edge. So I don't stitch off the edge, okay? Presser foot comes up, I spin it around 180 degrees, and I'm going to stitch straight back what I just did and come past the start point and finish off at the other top stitching line, and from there I'll pivot again and come back. Meaning I'm starting in the center, going out, coming all the way back down, out, and then back and stopping in the center to finish off. And that came out nice and straight. Alright, so that's it for this video tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make my little cork needle book. Hopefully you'll give it a try with some cork fabric. Remember, I'll include a link in the description box below on where I buy my cork, so you can check it out. My friend Sarah sells it in so many different colors. It really is just an amazing, different fabric to work with. Remember that it's water repellent, stain resistant, and it's eco-friendly and sustainable as it's harvested from a tree in Portugal. So definitely give it a try. If you're scared to cut into your fabric, I think a lot of us are sometimes when we really love the fabric we have on hand, is to try a project like this. Just make a little one. That way you don't have to use up all your fabric, but it'll give you a good place to start while you're still leaving with a functional project. And that way you'll know what settings you need to set your machine to, kind of what needle and how it feels to sew through the cork fabric. And I bet you after you make something like this, you're gonna be off and running. Now, if you're still waiting for details on my organizer club, stick around. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Share it with your crafty friends across the different social media sites, and I will be back in the next video with more details and an early bird sale price for my 2018 Organizer of the Month Club. If you know me, you know I love to make practical and functional projects, and that is exactly what we're going to be doing in this new club. I'm going to teach you a ton of different techniques. We're working with a variety of different textiles and products, from clear vinyl to vinyl and cork and mesh, and using different types of hardwares like buckles and webbing and all kinds of stuff. So you're not only going to be making the projects that I'm going to show you in the next video, but you're also going to be learning a variety of skills and techniques that you can then carry over to a ton of other projects. So thanks again for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again very soon in the next video where I'll release all the details and show you all the projects we'll be making in the new Organizer Club.